Alright, I've got the bracket reinstalled and bolted down. So the next step is we need to put the new pads in. So obviously you've got one pad for each side of the rotor. Now my set came with one that has a bracket right here. I'm not quite sure what that's for, but it needs to face out, because if you put it on the back side it's going to interfere with the caliper, I believe. So I'm going to mount that one on the outside. The other one will go on the inside. Try to keep your oily fingers away from the friction material. That's what clamps against the rotor, obviously, and causes it to stop spinning. So you want to keep this clean. But we do need to put some lubricant on the back of both pads. Again, my kit came with lubricant supplied. So we'll smear a little bit of that on the back plate, and then we will slip them into the clips, and then we can work on replacing the caliper guides and bolts and get the caliper installed, and then we'll call it done. Alright, so I've got the new outer pad installed, and basically you need to slip the top in first. You can see how it hooks around the clip. See if I can pull it out and show you. So it goes in like that, and then I'm wondering if this little bracket on the bottom is actually to aid in installation. You can see I'm holding onto it, and you slip the bottom of the pad around the bottom bracket. So it's in place now. We just need to do the same with the inner pad. It'll go the same way, and then we'll work on the caliper. Alright, so I've got the inner pad installed too. I did it the same way. I stuck the top in first, and then slip the bottom in kind of from the side. The inner side's easier because you don't have the bracket in your way. So that's done. Now we just need to move on to replacing the guides and these little rubber boots for the caliper bolts. Now you don't have to do this. These boots seem intact. I'm sure I could just reuse them. But since I've got the new ones and the new guide sleeves that go through there, I'm going to go ahead and replace them. So basically these just kind of push through. I'm going to need two hands, but you can basically just pull from one side. It's probably easier to grab the guide sleeve and just try to pull it out of the boot and pull the boot out separately. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll show you what that looks like before I pull the boot out. Be right back. Alright, so there's the old guide removed. You can see what it looks like. Now the boot is empty, and I'm just going to pull it. Again, I'll probably need two hands, but you just need to pull from one side. And you may have to kind of push with your finger from the other side at the same time. But it's not attached any way, it's just kind of pushed through the opening in the caliper. So we're going to remove all of those, and we'll put the new ones in. Alright, so I've got all the guides and boots removed. Here's my new kit. 2 new boots, 2 new guides, 2 new bolts. So I'm going to stick the guides through first. Again, they just push through the hole. It's definitely going to take 2 hands, but they should be centered like that. And then I'm going to lubricate the guide sleeves and try to stick them through the boots, and then we'll put the bracket back in place. Alright, so I've got all of the new boots and guides installed. It was pretty simple. Went just like I described, and then you can see the end of the boot kind of hooks around a groove in the end of the guide, and that keeps it from jumping off the end. Alright, so we're ready to put the caliper back on now, but before we do that, we need to compress the pistons back into the caliper body so that everything will clear our new pads. Basically we need this dimension to be as wide as possible to give us the clearance. So to do that, I'm going to use a C-clamp to compress those pistons back in, and I've got one of the old pads kind of here as a spacer. You can use a small block of wood or plywood if you want, but the old pad will work just fine. So I'm going to tighten this down. That'll compress those pistons, and then we can put the caliper back on the bracket. So let me get that squared away and we will wrap this up. Alright, so I just wanted to give you a quick shot of what it looks like with the pistons compressed back in. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my zip tie and set the caliper back in place. Alright, so I've got the new caliper in place. Again, I hooked the top in first. You can see that little tab hooks behind the clip, and then you kind of swing the bottom in. Now I haven't hooked the bottom yet, but basically I just need to kind of lift up and push in on the bottom, and this should jump behind that little locking piece of the clip, and then we can put our caliper bolts back in. So let me get this clipped in and then we'll work on the bolts. Alright, so I've got the upper and lower caliper bolts started. You see where they go again. Mine happen to be 12mm, so we just need to tighten these down, and then we are ready to put the wheel back on and call this project complete. I'll take it for well, I'll probably just pull up and down my driveway first and make sure the brakes are working okay, and then I'll take it for a short test drive and make sure everything's good. But this wraps it up basically. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Hopefully this will help save you a few bucks if you decide to do this on your own. I'll try to post the info about the kit that I purchased. I got it all from rockauto.com, so I'll post that in the video description. But again, I hope it's been helpful, and I appreciate you watching. Take care.